We're good? Okay. We're going to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, April 27th, 2022 to order. We don't need a motion to move. We're going to move right. I need a motion to go to regular session, correct? Or do we even need that motion? We do? I thought we were skipping exec.
We're going to skip it. We'll do it later.
Unless there's something on here that we needed to talk about first, but I didn't think we did.
You just start with your call to order and we will move forward.
So we are going to call the meeting to order for all the confusion of people online. Everyone, please silence your electronic devices, and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We do something out of the norm. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. All right. Additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
Yes, I have business consideration. 6.15 will be a disciplinary charge. 6.16 is a Bank of Greene County grant of $100. 6.17 is to establish a liability reserve. Personnel considerations. 7.17 is going to be the hiring of a building aide. 7.18 is a resignation, and I will be deleting 7.4.
Deleting 7.4. Cross. Okay. Can I get a motion for the additions and deletions? Mrs. Burns, Mr. Hislop, all in favor? All right. Need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes for the April 4th. Do I have to do them separate?
No, you can do
And
it
the
together.
April 6th BOE meetings? Mr. Hislop, Mrs. Burns, all in favor? All right, motion's passed. We have no awards or honors or recognitions or hearings and petitions. We need a motion for one or all of the business considerations.
I'll make a motion for all.
Okay, do I have a second? Mrs. Burns. I want to call out, we do have some donations. 6.6 donation from 4 Imprint for backpacks for the middle school program. We have another donation from Stewart's Holiday Match for A.W. Becker for the outdoor walking trail. Stewart's Holiday Match for a cash register for the Career Cafe.
And the $100 from the Bank of Greene County.
Okay, $100 from Bank of Greene County. And I think that is all our donations. So we thank all of those people who have donated to our school district. All in favor? All right. Need a motion for one or all of the personnel.
Skip that part.
Sorry.
I just wanted to see, will we be covering 6.12 during the meeting? Is there a recap of that, or? I can give a recap. 6.12, the corrective action plan.
I can go through that when we're in the meeting.
You want to do it now, or you want to do it in your section?
During my section.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Okay. Yeah, we discussed that. I actually think it might even be in old stuff, right?
Okay.
Old business, maybe. All right, I need a motion for one or all of the personnel considerations.
Make a motion for all, excluding 7.4.
Okay, do we have a second? Mrs. Burns. I do think we have a retirement, correct? 7.12. We would like to thank Mrs. Lefevre as she is going into retirement at the end of this year. So we thank you for her time and service. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? All right. Motion's passed. 8.1 and 8.2 are informational items only. 9 special reports. Don't really have anything to report. Spring break, I think, is over, and we're into the fourth quarter, I think, and winding down towards the end of the year. And it seems like the end of the school year is coming upon us very quickly, and a lot of end of the year school activities, I think, are coming up. So it will be exciting to see those things happen. Anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss? We will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
At our last meeting, we had a brief discussion, a refresher about field trips and the field trips abroad that have been proposed. One of the things that one of the members asked was that we have a quick review of the existing policies around field trips. I had sent it to the board a couple weeks ago, and they're publicly available policies. Policy 8460, which was, we spent some time on it in 2014, doing some improvements. And the field trips that we're talking about specifically are at the top of the second page, extracurricular field trips. They're defined as those that are incidental to class curriculum, not required or open to all students. They're planned to occur outside of the school day or the school year, do not result in credit or penalty on student participation, and must be privately funded. Examples include ski club, trips to other countries, or club trip to a cultural event or sporting contest. So that's what we're talking about within the scope of this. I also attached our fundraising policy, because it's likely that students who are participating in this may choose to do some fundraising around this. And as I said, right now we have two small groups of staff who are willing to sponsor trips. One is interested in going to Costa Rica with middle and high school students, and the other is interested in going to a few European countries with high school students. And the nice thing about working with EF Tours is they will customize the trip to be anything that you'd like it to be. So go to the locations that you're most interested in. I think the Costa Rica tour is one that they've taken many, many times. So this is one that has both RCS staff and some of our students historically have gone on this particular trip. I think the European one may be a little more customized. And as far as enrollment goes, the minimum they would need to go is 6, if you can believe that. There is a possibility they would be partnered with another school on such a trip, which actually is kind of exciting in a way. When talking to other schools who've participated in EF Tours in the past, and they've actually had to participate and do it with other schools, they saw some really cool lifelong relationships forming with the kids they were traveling with too, kids from Indiana or kids from Florida. So there's a lot of levels of education around these types of trips. The EF Tours specifically builds in historic components to the trip, classes as a component of the trip. They send their own chaperone with our chaperones so that they always have someone to escort them from place to place. And what other questions do you have?
Is there anything, I mean, being the last time we approved this, it was in 2014, is there anything we have to do to update this policy at all?
Not at this time.
Okay.
What we did is we took the sum total of our experiences up to 2014 and rewrote it in preparation for someday we'll be able to take trips, like one of the staff members talked about ski trips. These used to be overnight ski trips that were extracurricular. So we did a good job of writing this so it has relevancy today as well.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah.
The fundraising is just kind of an attachment to this one, but I know that we have had a lot of conversation about making sure that those are approved before they're undertaken. How did we land on the calendar or how we house those approvals? So that we know there's a responsible person and there's whatever the guidelines are for that fundraising activity.
Deidre built a webpage that shows fundraisers that have been approved. So it's like a one-stop shop of so folks in the community would know what's happening at any given time. So as a component of approval, she gets a copy of it as well, so we know that PTA is selling wrapping paper from December 1st to December 20th. Anything else about that one?
Nope.
The other one I wanted to bring your attention to is one that we spent some time on in policy in 2019, which is our therapy dog policy. We did have a service dog policy in 2019, but we hadn't really fleshed out therapy dogs, and we were on the verge of going into this territory. And of course, the pandemic occurred, and it wasn't possible at the time. So we're interested in restarting that. Back in 2019, we'd won a grant to help support the program. And in the 2021 school budget, we actually put money in our budget to help support the program. And we haven't been able to launch yet. So we're going to follow a model that Guildland uses, which is a little avant-garde. To begin with, we will be, with some of the grant monies and the money we budgeted, we actually will be purchasing our own dogs. So these will be dogs that are specifically bred for the purpose of being therapy dogs, either Labradors, say that again?
Labradoodles?
Either Labradors or Labradoodles.
So if we were to purchase dogs,
I'm going to get to the punchline.
right, do
So-
we purchase like dogs from different litters, dogs from the same litter, different kinds of breeds of dogs? I guess
We're limiting it to Labradors or Labradoodles from
Okay.
trusted breeders that are in our community.
okay.
So the model that Guildland follows is that, and they started their program almost 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The dog is purchased and staff are willing to apply to adopt the dogs. Our staff members will own the dogs after they've been purchased with a promise of continued service in the district for a certain number of years. If they break service with the district, they would reimburse the district for the cost of the dog. The district would pay for veterinary bills in the first year only, and the owner will be responsible for food and other ancillary things. We'll do all the training of the team because it won't just be the owner, there'll be a team. For instance, if there were a dog here in the high school, it would be the owner, and it might be the school social worker and a guidance counselor as well, or a teacher in a classroom, because the dog will actually work in a few venues over the course of a day potentially, and also if for some reason a teacher's unavailable, there needs to be a handler who's capable of doing it. So it'll be kind of a wraparound approach. We would like to start with 5 dogs in this coming year, and I think we have eyes on 3 puppies right now, one that's already been born, and a couple Labradoodle litters that are forthcoming. And the folks that we're working with are those people who have either worked in Guildland or work affiliated with them, and they evaluate every puppy before it's even considered to be go into service. They do like an attitude assessment because the dogs have to be rock solid, patient, kind, inquisitive, gentle before they go into this service. And one of the breeders that we're working with actually even has a guarantee if at any time while the dog is in service in our district and is incompatible for service, she will buy the dog back because she feels so strongly that, you know, she's providing an animal to us and she doesn't want the dog to go somewhere she doesn't want him to go either. So,
Right.
So there is some risk involved in it, not in a casualty risk, but there is some risk involved because it requires people who are dedicated and passionate. And what Guildland has found, and other districts who have done this is something that people rally around in such a meaningful way that it feeds itself. We want to begin the program with the dogs that we've selected, and we know are trained under all of the auspices that we will provide. And after we've established a program, which probably is about 2 years, we would invite staff whose dogs meet the criteria to potentially also come into the school. And they need to have the Kennel Club Good Citizenship certificate in order to come into the building. And the owner has to demonstrate some training as well. It's professional development, it's training as well. So there'll be ongoing training for our handlers. And as I said, after the first year, other than there's one that's mandated for them in school, flea and tick and something else. But other than that, the owner will actually be responsible for the animals.
So-
We'll have crates in school. We'll have leashes available here. We'll have dog toys available here. We'll have all those things here, and they'll be in a few places in the building because, as I said, the dogs may be housed in a few different places over the course of a day.
So do we have to change some of these things that are within our policy of what we're going to provide and not provide just to, because I mean, as long as we're legit and everything else, I mean, I'm fully supportive of the whole program. I just want to make sure our policy is written in a way that we cover our bases is one thing of making sure the policy is up to date. One of the other things that if we get to the point where we bring in other dogs or teachers volunteer to bring their dogs, of who we would rely on to make the evaluation of someone else's dog being qualified. Like myself, I would not think that's going to be anybody within our school district unless
Agreed.
you guys are going to get trained on how to evaluate dogs. But I would think that we would have to, if we have to hire someone or a company or an agency to evaluate dogs, make sure they have the certifications and all the things they need. Because I think not only if you bring another dog and you have multiple dogs, you have to be cautious of the dogs getting along as well. And if, the therapy dogs are trained and it's different, and, listen, I've watched shows for how they train dogs for blind people and other people, and it's actually pretty amazing of what these dogs go through. So I just want to make sure that we put all the parameters and policies in place and follow the rules that we need to, and making sure we don't have any issues with it.
The folks,
How does this, I guess I'm kind of out there, I'm only familiar with service dogs that are specific to the person, like something that's helping them. How do we interface the child in the school district with the service dog? Like is each need kind of spelt out as part of their, help me, I can't even picture it.
I'm going to answer Tay's question first, then I'll
Okay.
help you with that. So the one part of the policy that has to be changed is J, because for the dogs that we purchase and our staff adopt, the district will continue to carry the insurance rider for those animals. If anyone else brings a dog into school, they will have to have their own insurance rider. But to give you a sense of the seriousness of the folks that we're working with, they will not let us adopt any of the animals unless they've interviewed the potential adopting owners as well, because they want to ensure compatibility with where the dog's going to be. Is it a one-bedroom apartment in Albany? Is it a household in Ravena that already has 2 other dogs? There's some criteria that they know will spell the success of a therapy dog. And so to your question, Tina, the dogs are trained, like the tests that I talked about, with their resiliency, their patience, their kindness, their calm. There isn't really, unlike a service dog, which is an accommodation.
Right.
Right, the opposite is true. The dog actually, its presence in a room, and it could be in an English classroom, or it could be in a social worker's office. I will let you know that one criteria that will be evident or necessary for us is the dog has to have access to as many of our students as possible. So for instance, a dog that's in a social worker's office does not really fit that criterion. They would be very useful in therapy, and they might be used by a social worker, but there might be another position where a dog has access to many more students. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a social worker, but the idea is to be able to allow as many students access as possible. So it could spend a period or 2 in a social worker's office and then go into an English classroom or into our Operation Graduation or something like that. So the dog does not have a specific assignment to a specific student. What they have a tendency to do is, what the research has shown, is for all of us, any of us who are dog friendly, not everybody's dog friendly, right? The simple presence of the animal in the room changes metabolism, brain function, social emotional levels. And there are times when the dog may be used for much more personal encounter. Elementary school is an easy example. Students who are reading reluctant or are speech reluctant, reading to the dog, talking to the dog, spending time with the dog. It's a lot easier to understand at the elementary school because, elementary kids wear everything on their sleeves. At the middle school and high school level, it's a little more complex, but when you see the videos and you talk to schools that have integrated them into their building, students who are hardened, or they've made some choices about school, they don't like school, they don't want to be in school, or don't relate well to others, are released by the presence of the dog. So it's not necessarily given a task to go, you'll work with Fred every day at 10 o'clock. Instead, it becomes a presence in a space, and students and the teacher are able to access the dog. The dog could sit on the floor next to a student in the classroom, and it just creates a completely changed atmosphere. I shared some videos with the board at the 2 Fridays ago. I'll share them again, that are just some videos of the dogs in practice and some brain research around what happens. But those of us that have pets, it doesn't have to be a dog. You have a cat or a squirrel or whatever is your personal animal. It changes a lot of things about us personally when we're in the presence of and in contact with. So the whole purpose of it is to clear a space for instruction to be meaningful.
I've seen the commercials. There's commercial for the hospital, like the
Yeah.
kid cancer
More
hospital. We
therapy,
all see
yes.
the dog and everything else. One of the that's all I can think of is the dog just comes in and sits there.
Right.
One of the other things, I want to like you take it to the next level in future. I mean, we're already putting things ahead of ourselves. Is how do we get kids involved with this down the road and get kids interested? Maybe not necessarily in the elementary school or in the high school as part of, maybe it's training the dog, working with the dog, and different things, because you look more and more, there's college courses and college classes of going to learn how to teach dogs or teach animals, but also I think of, vet technicians or people like that, of how do you bring that into the loop? So then it actually makes this program even bigger and better.
Yeah, that's a great point.
But I mean, how quick would they, like if they're puppies now, would they be in our school that quick, like they would be in the fall? Does their training start immediately?
I asked that because she's, as part of our discussions, we've spoken many times, a therapy dog is able to be certified at 2 years old. And I said, so does that mean that they'll adopt the dog and we'll keep it at home? She said, no, the training happens right from the onset, because that is the thing that makes them sociable and makes them in a safe space and makes them understand the nature of their work. So the adults get trained, and that's why it's a few adults too, because we've all had, those of us who have had pets and children know that it takes constant, consistent, long-term training. And staff have other responsibilities as well. So a team of people will be able to help, especially with a 2 or 3 month old puppy coming into school. Barking is another qualifier. The dogs that are able to remain calm. Of course, the dogs do bark, but they don't, bark like intruder bark. They bark out of friendliness. They bark out of welcome. We have had the therapy dog Rocket coming into the A.W. Becker. And it is, any of the videos I shared don't even compare to what happens when he walks into a classroom. Just, every child is eyes wide open, energy. You can see their emotions on their sleeve, and they're eager to please the dog in their learning too. So you'd think, it's just going to be a distraction. It is really heartwarming and amazing. So even if we're only able to get 3 dogs this coming year, I think it'll be a landmark improvement for our programs.
Good. Okay.
And I waited. I held off for the staff on the field trips. I waited for them to really promote until after we've had the discussion at the board. And I haven't solicited any staff around the therapy dogs until we've had the discussion at the board. But what we'll do now is we'll put out some interest to folks. We'll have an interest meeting with the consultants that we've been talking to. I'll also be bringing to the board the proposal, because we are talking about, I think they had said, hi Bray, I think they had said the training is basically, they'll do 2 weeks of training with the handlers and then 2 weeks off, and then 2 weeks of training, like half-hour, 45-minute trainings, on and off. And some of it will be in person and some of it will be remote. So we'll be talking about that agreement in the upcoming board meetings. We just talked about dog break. We just talked about therapy dogs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You did briefly mention people that weren't
Puppies?
dog folks, right? So on the flip side, so everything is, positive so far, but what about those that are not, right? So we have kids that may not be, terrified of dogs and stuff like that. Is there a plan and a process to try to manage those situations?
We would notify any family where we know the dog will be working.
Yep.
As we would with, STARS, we let them know that our STARS volunteers will be in the classroom. If it's something that And listen, we're talking about life skills too, right, for our students and our staff. We would try low-level ways of trying to help them through that, whatever that issue is.
Yep.
I mean, I know people in my life who've been attacked by dogs,
Mhm.
and they had to get over their fear after that experience. But if it were if it was unfixable, then that dog obviously wouldn't work in that area.
Okay.
The students and the staff in our care take the priority. We wouldn't like force the dog and say the staff member or the student has to go somewhere else. There would have to be a level of agreement about all of that, which is another reason why we would have a team for each of the animals that was here, so that in that instance they could go somewhere else and not have to be there at that particular time.
Okay. Any other questions? Do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
We will turn it over to Mr. Engelhardt.
So my computer may die. That's the case. I'll try to. We are in the process of sending home information to parents around what we're calling RCS Discovery Camp. It's going to be our summer enrichment program for first through, thank you, Dr. Bailey, first through 8th grade. We have done what we call the Ventures in Reading, which really just focus on literacy skills, and then an APEX type of, not really credit recovery. In our middle school, it was using IXL, which is an online program over the last 2 years because of COVID. What we noticed is that we could do better at engaging kids. Attendance seemed to be a concern, so we thought if we created more of a camp-like feel, using our American Rescue Plan funds to extend the day, to provide transportation, to increase hourly rates for folks, that we would be able to, and really have teaching staff have input in creating kind of these like passion themes, that we would get more kids involved. So that information is coming out. It is recommendations from the teachers, because there is still an academic component to it. And we want to make sure that we are supporting that, so we don't have that summer slump that we hear a lot about. So more information to come around that. For many of us who have kids who participated in NISMA, that just occurred. We had lots of students participate in that. So congratulations to them and teachers. I did mention this, I think, in the beginning of March, but it was in the News Herald article this past week or the week before regarding our robotics team, who went to, not only they won part of the local, but they went to the regional competition out in Utica and came in 5th place. So I just wanted to just recognize them again. Over break was Earth Day, and so many of our teachers had students participate in Earth Day projects. Peter B's 5th grade student council did some kind of a school grounds beautification, and the middle school and high school is having a garden build day on May 7th, and I believe the Stars are going to partner with us around that. They have some avid gardeners. And then we had 61 students participate in our SATs on Tuesday. And we are finishing up 3 through 8 math testing as well. Our participation rates for ELA have gone up. And we looked at 2018-19, it was about 65%, and we're up to close to 90% of participation at this point. 85%, I misspoke, 85%.
And it is relevant. The state has, again, noted that they will be holding schools accountable for participation numbers. It is good that we've shown great improvement. It will probably not meet their benchmark for participation, but it is good. It's better.
I had a CTE piece too, and I forgot it. So I will try to remember, and if I remember by the end, I'll share it out.
Sounds good.
Okay.
We will turn it over to Mrs. Moran.
I will mention that you approved this evening 2 corrective action plans for the risk assessment. The audit committee, we met with Mr. Wolf a couple of weeks ago, and this is in result to that. Or it was a few weeks ago, actually. But the risk assessment, we are subject to several different kinds of audits. Our risk assessment is internal to school districts that have more than, I think it is 1,500 students and a budget of our size. So what they identified for both 2021 and 21-22, because he was behind a year, was that our IT and the fact that we need to finalize our disaster recovery plan. So part of that, and the audit committee, we we started an IT audit, and that's not complete yet. We'll be meeting to discuss those findings soon. But that was one of the things that was identified in both the 2021 audit and the 21-22 audit. And again, our plan is to have a finalized board-approved disaster recovery plan in place, formalized by June 30th. And again, once again, extra classroom activities funds came up as a weakness. And again, we know that because there's a lot of cash that's involved with extracurricular fundraising activities, and it allows for one of those areas of risk because of the amount of cash. One of the concerns and the recommendation is that there is no central treasurer right now in the high school. We have one in the middle school. Right now, our district treasurer has been acting as the central treasurer, which I would say she would not be happy about it, but we have identified a lot of things that have allowed us to, we really have to spend time with the advisors in the buildings when we have somebody in place. We've talked about it as a board before, that we have to up the salary for that, and we are going to be doing that. You'll have a recommendation before the end of the school year, and our plan is to have a high school central treasurer in place by August. And along with that will come a whole different level of training that the advisors need to. We met with the Career Cafe advisor the other day, or a week ago or so. It is just something that they really have to focus on. Being advisor is much more than just collecting a stipend for that job. It really needs to be a focus on how the kids are incorporated in that. So again, the recommendation was for a central treasurer. We'll be having that appointed by August, and that was it. They're relatively minor. We always do a specific scope. Earlier this year, we approved the transportation. They looked at the fuel system. We approved that. I think it was late last year or earlier this year. We're going to see if the state will allow us to accept the IT audit as that focus scope for this year. And if not, we'll pick something else for the focus scope. But we have now we're up to date and caught up with throughout the pandemic. That's it.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you. New business, anybody have any new business? No, to discuss? Anything in these old business? No? One thing I'll bring up that just reminded me is our Career Cafe in old business. I think we've had a lot of conversations about career readiness and maybe a few other things. And I'd like to, I give kudos to you guys and Dr. Paterni and listening to the Career Cafe thing. Recently, over the last month, I'm doing last-minute college tours again. And I sat into a presentation for a dean at the college, and about 2 minutes into it, I leaned over to my daughter and said, I feel like Dr. Bailey's talking to us right now. Like it was like some of the things that they're talking about in college, graduating from college, and how to be ready for a career, were some of the same things that we even talk about here in high school. We talked about in that Career Cafe. So it seems like some of the things we're doing are what even colleges are doing 4 years from now. We're preparing kids out of high school to go into jobs and everything else. So it was, really encouraging to hear when you're going to college that, they're thinking of some of the same things we are. So I just thought it was, good information. BOE committee reports, we have none. Policy reviews, none. No hearings of petitions from the crowd tonight. Upcoming activities, May 4th, which is next week, correct? We have budget hearing, meet the candidates night, which we have 6 candidates for the BOE. And our budget vote is coming up on May 17th. And we need a motion to move to executive session. Mrs. Klein, second. Mr. Hislop, all in favor? Aye.